Hello and welcome to Monday's Terrace podcast. We're joining you somewhere from roughly about the middle of the Somme. So if you hear cracks and pops in the background, it's simply because it's the 5th of November. I'm joined today by Euan Taylor, who's presumably setting off various fireworks of his own after a
Absolutely.
lovely day at Hampden.
Yes, indeed. I thought, at least we got a mention of the song, which will cheer Hearts fans up. And they need to cheer up after getting absolutely gubbed 3-1 today. Lovely.
Yes, they did indeed. And we'll get onto that in a little minute, but we'll go chronologically, I suppose.
Yes.
Or arguably what's funnier. So we'll start yesterday. We'll start running through the weekend's action. We'll do the 2 Cup semi-finals, and then we'll run through the remaining 3 Premiership fixtures from the weekend. Yesterday saw Aberdeen defeat Hibernian 1-0 with a Bojan Miovski goal with 12 minutes remaining, securing passage for Aberdeen through to the I was going to say the Betfred, the Premier Sports Cup final.
The Viaplay Cup, I think you'll find.
The Viaplay.
You've got getting your sponsors mixed up here, Graeme. Shocking.
Sponsors all over the place here. Nonetheless, Aberdeen secured a place in the Viaplay Cup final, which in itself doesn't sound like a hugely interesting thing went on, and in large part the game kind of reflected that as well. But it was ultimately very, very funny. Euan, kick us off.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it followed the Scottish football mantra, I suppose. If you can't be good, be funny, and it definitely was that as a game. I thought it was absolutely appalling as a game up until the red card, and then it got interesting. At least, two teams that I think are very badly coached at the moment. Now, Aberdeen fans might not want to hear that because they've got to a final and fair play to them. I personally can't remember a team playing as badly as that and getting through a semi-final in recent times. I thought Aberdeen were terrible. The approach that they to basically play 5-4-1 against Hibs as Aberdeen in a semi-final, I thought was unbelievably negative from Robson. And the game panned out, exactly as you sort of thought. I mean, I when I saw the teams come out, obviously, I thought the Hibs team looked very soft. And playing Levitt and Euan as the 2 centre mids, and basically as a sort of, I mean, I know that Montgomery's taken issue with people calling it 4-2-4, but I mean it is. I'm sorry, because Jared Tavares and Euan and Martin Boyle really these days can't tackle. So they're attacking players. So I know that I think Dzeko was unavailable, but to go with that kind of approach, I thought was really, really soft. And then when I looked at the Aberdeen team, I was like, you've gone the other way. You've gone the other way, sir. You're playing 4 centre mids for some reason. And 1 striker and really 5 defenders. So it was 2 teams. I don't know what each team thought the other team was going to do, but Hibs looked, I thought, quite confused as to why Aberdeen weren't coming out at all to play. I thought Aberdeen really set up as if they were playing one of the Old Firm or Frankfurt or whoever, your PAOK maybe in the Conference League, and went with that approach. And I just really thought it was. They didn't deserve to go through Aberdeen on that, I thought, but then their performance in the last 50 minutes, they probably did deserve it because Hibs didn't do anything to win the game themselves.
A truly surreal selection from Aberdeen in the way in which they set up, but then similarly for the last 15 minutes after going a man down, suddenly went, well, I suppose we can. That means we can now open up and play.
Yes.
Which felt like a very strange way in which to approach a game of football, being down to 10 men and then seeing that as the opportunity to then go and take the game on. A difficult one to process, really. Not a huge amount of chance, a huge amount in the game. Obviously, Hibernian had the ball in the back of the net, which I've read a significant amount about bendy lines and I'm not quite sure what to do with that. I've also thoroughly enjoyed friend of the show Chris Finn's take on this as well, which has done really well in terms of outing a lot of Hibs fans of being quite thick as well, which has really been enjoyable too.
Yes, yeah, he's quite he's taken against Nick Montgomery. I think it's fair to say Chris has, and rightly so. And and as I say, I've been on record, I don't know how many times on this podcast, against the A-Leagueification of Scottish football, and Nick Montgomery is starting to prove me right, because it's just not really very impressive.
His quotes ahead of the game, which felt kind of like a Hibs AI, was quite concerning as well. I love big games and big occasions. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the green shirts and scarves at Hampden. Our fans will be there to support us and make a lot of noise. We want to send them home happy. Didn't, but
really didn't.
Really didn't. But just like a really weird, like, the more I hear of him, the more I hear from him, and the more that we see him, I still think it's relatively difficult to judge how good, bad, or indifferent Aberdeen Football Club are, because there are fundamental issues within that squad which he cannot fix overnight, and he cannot fix without other better players within that as well. That said, that does not make him devoid, or that does not allow him to escape criticism for being bad for 90 minutes, particularly bad for 50 minutes against a club that had 10 men who had not really, like, an incredibly defensive looking and one, like, almost one pace team as well, outside of Bojan Miowski. Just a really poor performance where, as you say, there was no real fluency to what Hibs really seemed to be doing with the attacking players that they have. He seems kind of stuck betwixt and between in terms of not if you're going to play the team that you have, simply take the handbrake off and go and try and score more goals than everybody else. I realise that isn't sort of coaching 101 and not how sensible coaches do things, but similarly, you have enough players in that team that can score goals and make difference and be difference makers in the squad to just go and take a punt at it. And worst case scenario, you lose, but you probably have a nice time doing it. And the way he's setting up and the way in which the players that he's putting out and the way he's setting up is not, they can't defend, so just go for it and have a laugh. Like, I'm a bit lost on it.
Yeah, and it's the build up from the back. It is like an extra. It's basically just an extra risk to add on to a team that you're already you're already setting them up in terms of with very, very attacking personnel, and it feels to me like asking the defenders who can't particularly play football to play it out rigidly from the back, as if you're like Brighton. That I don't think you've got the players to do that either. So you could, if Hibs were all about just getting the ball forward quickly, and and then you've got your two wingers and two strikers, you've got your best forward line in Scottish football outside Celtic, trademark Duncan Mackay. Then get the ball to them as quickly as possible and play that way. Which probably means you'd probably have to you play Deutsch more than you might want to otherwise. But just go that way, rather than trying to be. I mean, Hibs would have to play. It feels to me Hibs have to play so well to win a game of football now, and it's sort of beyond them. And that's it's been the case. That's 9 games I think Montgomery's had. He's won twice. They've chucked away a few leads in that time as well, because it's difficult to sustain playing as well as I think Montgomery's setup needs them to play for 90 minutes. And it just seems that they can't really do it. So he's going to have to. He's basically, that's him used up his honeymoon period, I think now. Yeah, completely. He's really, and as I think possibly Barry Robson would have been in not a dissimilar boat. Obviously, Robson has credit in the bank from last season, which Montgomery doesn't have. But Montgomery just had the sort of new manager, everyone wants to get behind him, sort of goodwill. I think whoever lost on Saturday, depending on I suppose how the game had gone, but I thought going into it, whoever lost was really going to be on a bit of a sticky wicket with their own fan base, and I think that's Montgomery now, and there's going to have to be actually some wins pretty quickly.
I mean, Robson also has the advantage of occasionally winning games of football as well.
Yes,
Which
he does.
puts him in a slightly further forward than Montgomery does as well.
Yes.
There are a few stupider decisions I've seen this season than Jack McKenzie's decision to get himself sent off as well.
Yes.
A quite remarkable moment, which getting suckered in by Lewis Miller is quite a talent as well.
Yeah, of all the people on the park to get suckered in by, and it wasn't even. It's one of those where sometimes a player does that, is a bit petulant, and you think the other player's sort of at it. But Lewis Miller just looked so shocked that McKenzie would be as stupid as that to fall for his sort of tiny wee nibble to then come back. It was almost like he went off the park. I think they did not sort of stumble off the park and then come roaring back on like a sort of 5-year-old that's having a tantrum. I mean, yeah, that was fair. But unfortunately for Hibs, Aberdeen played a lot better without Jack McKenzie, and yeah, the Lewis Miller obviously had his role in the goal as well, which was I looked at it a few times. I can't see the foul there. I don't think there is one. I think you've just dived there.
Yeah, 100%. Do we obviously the VAR decisions there as well, but the penalty decision, we're quite comfortable with it being a dive, or what are we thinking?
Yeah, I think with the Venti one, I think he's going down before he makes the contact by going sort of diving into Kelarus. I think there's a way that Venti could have made that a penalty. I think if he'd stayed in his feet longer, got the touch, and then let the contact happen, and then fall over, I think it would have been a penalty.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think he sort of fell into Roos because he obviously saw the sort of dangling arm. So I suppose it's not massively dissimilar from the Daniil one that we'll come on to in the Rangers Hearts game, but I think that that was a penalty, whereas this one I think just wasn't.
That was very, very much my feeling on it as well. Like if he just stood and waited for the contact, which you should do in any case, he would have got the penalty out of it. And it's one of those weird scenarios where it's not even one of those weird scenarios where he's being too honest with it as well. If he is actually just slightly more honest, then I think he gets a penalty at the end of it.
Yeah, I think so.
That said, by a distance, the nicest bit of play throughout the entirety of the game was threading the ball through onto Miovski, who was just as soon as he picked up the ball, you were like, this game is over. Like, he will take this ball, he will not miss.
Yeah. He's just he may be the most improved player in Scottish football this season, which is
he was good last year. Yeah, so yeah,
he was. Yeah, so I mean, and that's not from a low base. I mean, I think a few of us probably had our doubts of him when he first arrived. I thought he was a wee bit limited, but effective. He's well beyond that now. I think he'd probably have a shout at. I think he'd be nominated for Player of the Year. I don't think he'd necessarily win it if it was held right now, but you think he'd be in that sort of top 4. And he's just having a cracking season, becoming a real all round striker, which is just as well because almost every other player that was at Aberdeen last season that was good isn't at the moment. So they really really need him to be, and he is delivering almost every week. So great finish, very funny finish right after it when he tried to think Dave Marshall went sideways.
I was going to give us that sort of balance of praise there. That yes, that was a smashing bit of play. He did very well. Also, just after that, it's the duality of man over the course of about 3.5 minutes.
Yes, but no, he was obviously is such a boon for any team to have a sort of reliable goal scorer like that, and Aberdeen have that right now, and it means that Duke can just be missing. And the rest of the team can look a bit dodgy in terms of how it's set up attacking wise, but they've got Miovski, who's just such a difference maker for them.
I mean, basically nobody else has a reliable scorer, but I imagine we'll get onto that later on as well, so that's absolutely fine. Do we have anything massively more to add to this game other than the absolute collapse from Hibs in that last 15 minutes is quite startling and worrying?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they really, it's we've all seen it supporting our own clubs when your team starts crossing the ball from positions that are not a place you should cross the ball from, and you're just trying to lump it into the box at any angle. Yeah, I mean they really panicked and played. I thought they played really poorly, and that would be more worrying to me than any anything else in the game from Hibs' perspective. You can they'd probably played okay up until the up until the red card and the goal, albeit with I thought sort of distinct lack of quality throughout, really going forward. But then they got worse and worse and worse as the game went on, and to sort of that's a bit of a bottling then. I think once the red card, is given, sort of bottled it from that point on, which is and stopped doing. Not that what they were doing really beforehand was really working, but they absolutely stopped doing anything that looked remotely threatening at that point. So really poor, and I think there does need to be a change in approach from Montgomery.
Yep. Which takes us to Sunday. Remember the 5th of November, where Hearts got bodied at Hampden by Rangers once again.
Yep.
Not a huge amount to write home about in the first half.
No.
Not a classic, I think we'll say, but that was more than made up for with 4 goals in the second half.
Yes. Yep. I mean, I thought, from a Rangers perspective, I thought Rangers were pretty comfortable first half without. We're making chances, but without making an absolute, without missing any sitters or anything like that. But at half time, I was still pretty confident that Rangers would see the game out. The second half was a really, I thought, pretty impressive performance from Rangers. Hearts just couldn't really cope. I thought the defensively looked a bit dodgy, but it was probably, I thought, I did a preview of it with Fowler on Friday, and I sort of thought that the difference maker, if you have to point to one difference to Clement's Rangers team compared to Beale's, it's really Danilo playing, and he ultimately was that. He's just sharper than what has been up front for Rangers up until this point this season, and like Desser's, just God love him, isn't winning that penalty because he's not quick enough. Yep. And Morelos wouldn't have won that kind of penalty either last season because he wasn't quick enough. Neither was Trolak. So it's just having that sort of sharpen both in the mind and in the legs, which we've not had for a while. And that obviously wins the wins the penalty. And then you could link up play for Scott Wright, who Scott Wright is got a bit of a Hampden specialist against Hearts enemy. Scored a good goal from sort of Danilo's nice link-up play as well. So, Danilo is making a difference there, and is I think teams are sort of struggling to work out what to do with him.
What to do? Yeah, he's got that sort of same sort of electric pace that like Sakala had, for example, but he's actually quite good at football as well, which Sakala notably wasn't for a good chunk of that time as well. So he's of all of the business that Rangers did in the summer, he's Butland aside obviously as well, but he's the one that's beginning to fulfill a little bit of the transfer fee that was paid for him.
Yeah, as well he should. He was pretty expensive very expensive from Scottish football standards. So he should be a guy that looks a sort of a level apart, and he's starting to. And it's just the amount of shots he gets off as well. Like he's racking up he's sort of, I think he's averaging sort of 5 or 6 shots a game, which is quite a lot for one player. So. The goals obviously come from that. There wasn't a goal today, but there might as well have been really considering what the impact he had in the game. So that was just ultimately, I think Hearts couldn't quite cope with that, and Hearts I really didn't think looked threatening out with set pieces at any point in the game whatsoever. It's quite different from last week when Shankland and Vargas to a lesser extent sort of caused Rangers problems. It did look like partly that was a change in personnel with Balogun playing, who's just a bit more adept physically than Ben Davies. Ben Davies obviously came on to not great effect later on in the game. I don't think Balogun's a great defender for Rangers standard these days. He shouldn't really be, but he had another good game where he's just he does have these games in Scottish football, Balogun, where he's always looked like quite comfortable because he's got all the physical tools that you need, and players can't really run away from him. So yeah, he had another good game. And I thought Rangers just looked quite solid, and out with, as I say, like the sort of break of a ball at a set piece or whatever. I couldn't really see how Hearts were going to score. Whereas the week before Ibrox, Hearts obviously didn't have that much going forward after they'd scored early on, but they did have that move, and they had a couple other ones in the throughout the game where they actually looked quite threatening. But that just wasn't the case today.
Yeah, Butland had a good save from Kent, I think it was.
Yes.
I think it was not long after the opening penalty.
Yeah,
I think
it was. Yeah.
Not long after that. And again, it was one of those ones like, it was a decent header. It was a decent save, but that was kind of about as close as Hearts came, really, with that as well. And just super clumsy from Clark at the penalty as well. It was just like not good, not great from getting to him in the first place, but again, just super clumsy. So again, everyone just saying our gentle prayers towards Angus Gunn being fit and healthy now.
Please, we'll come on to another contender for that.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Yes, we will indeed. But I don't know, from kind of a Hearts perspective in this one, it's kind of difficult to take a huge amount away from the game again. From them, yes, Shankland got his almost customary VAR penalty later on in the game, but even with that as well, I didn't really feel a case of like, oh, that'll be an awkward 10 minutes remaining. It just kind of fizzled out by that point, certainly as well. And it was. I always find it quite startling when Scott Wright does have one of his days. He's very clearly a very talented player, and he's a smashing sort of highlights player as well. I would imagine you could put together a good sort of 5-6 minute showreel of his time at Rangers where you could make him look like a genuine world-beating player. But just giving him that level of space and the ability to pick up pockets and then knock the ball around corners and do quick 1-2s. Hearts just didn't really deal with it, and you saw it was it Rolls that grabbed hold of him at the edge of the box as well, because it was just a case of we literally just don't know what to do here. We need some help here. We need somebody to do something different. And again, I kind of assumed that's why they brought on maybe Forrest as well, trying to stretch the game out wider a little bit as well, but they just never really got to grips with a guy who's a decent player rather than a world-beating player, which is a frustrating one.
Yeah, he's been good, right? Actually, he was since Cologne come in, he was good. He was really good against Dundee. I thought didn't really get any headlines, but it's one of those. He might just be a beneficiary of the Rangers system being a bit more straightforward to play in than it used to be under. And the Gerard Bale, it was always a bit like, I did think those two number 10s, it was basically like if you were Ryan Kent, you were okay, but even if sometimes he wasn't, and then nobody else seemed to work out exactly what they were meant to be doing. And that sort of followed, that really came to a head this season when we didn't have Ryan Kent. So he just seems to be being asked to do something relatively simple, which is, I think there are a lot of movements going on ahead of him, but he's getting isolated and he's getting one-on-one with opponents, and that's where he's actually quite useful, because he is quite good at being direct and dribbling people. So he could be a guy. I mean, he's never going to be like an amazing Rangers player, but it would be really good if he can just be a good solid squad player, which he's shown signs of breaking out into, but never quite nailed that down. Just from a sort of, he's in the European squad because he's Scottish, and Rangers have a real paucity of Scottish players. So that's he could really have a decent Rangers career. He could basically never leave because and be a guy that's just on the bench all the time, but effective when he comes on.
It's a really sort of weirdly niche role of, we need you to be a bench player, but also need to be a super consistent performer. While being a bench player, like it's a really odd role. I know, very specialised role, but similarly, if you only want to play half an hour a week, that sounds class.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, you'll never get injured. You'll be fine. Probably worth mentioning also the Tab's free kick was class.
It was very good strike to have. Yes. To have near Hampden feels like there's a handful, and obviously his strike against Peterhead is the one that I most vividly remember as well, but a couple of them. This one might count for slightly more potentially.
Yes, hopefully. But it was again, Clark, I don't think, covered himself in glory there by moving away from the ball before it went rifling in. But if it goes in your side, it's not great. I think as a keeper.
Nonetheless,
yes.
moving away from this cup nonsense, we have 3 Scottish Premiership games to walk through. We will start in the Highlands, as on Saturday lunchtime, Celtic ran out 3-0 winners against Ross County. It was
it's a training exercise.
In large part, it felt very briefly like it might be slightly frustrating. Only for James Brown, no, not that one, the other one, got sent off for what was actually it was one of those ones which went to VAR and was upgraded from a yellow to a red. The referee was standing looking at it about 4 feet away, and gave him a book in the first place. That's a really poor challenge.
Yeah, the only mitigation I would put for the referee, not for James Brown, because it definitely was red, was that I think he maybe wasn't expecting him to fly in like that, and I think unless you see the point of in, because when I saw it first, I thought, I thought, well, that it's not good. It's not a good tackle, but it might be all right because it basically just depends on the point of impact. But then when you see the point of impact and it's like studs up on the ankles, like that's definitely a red. But if he'd sort of wrapped, if he hadn't gone studs up or studs into him and he just sort of like wrapped him around the shins, then it's not a good tackle, but it's yellow. So that would be the only mitigation I think you could give the referee. But he sort of flew into it and maybe just wasn't actually watching exactly where the impact was. But yeah, it's or it could just be he shot out of it because he thought VAR will make it a red card if it's a red card.
We'll get away with not having to make a huge number of decisions on this because
especially after like 8 minutes in or whatever. Yeah, you might have just thought let's make this yellow, and then VAR is in the background if I've made a mistake.
Yeah, it looked like it might potentially become a little bit frustrating, but ultimately, there was just so many chances for Celtic. It's just over and over again, and it's one of those ones where you feel that they could have racked the score up to be 7 or 8 if they'd really wanted to. But as soon as they got that first goal as well, the game's done at this point.
Yeah, it was a funny one because Ross Liddell played brilliantly, actually.
Yeah,
he was definitely. Like some of the saves he made were superb, and he did keep the score down. However, I would say the Turnbull one and the Palma one he could have maybe done better with. It's like weirdly enough, you can't. It should have been put another goalkeeper in there, and it could have been 4 or 5 easily. But I thought the Palma one, especially, that's in the middle of the goal. I know it sort of goes over him a bit, but I thought he could have saved that. And then the Turnbull one's good, is in the corner. But again, I think he might have thought he could have got down to that one. But then some of the other saves were ridiculously good. Made one from Funashi second half in particular. Which
the one where his arm just sort of dangling down there as well. It was, and there was because he made that same save about 3 or 4 times of just arms just down there, managing to just get a block away. And like the Palm one, I do agree with you as well. I feel bad criticising a guy who had to put up with had to put up with 39 shots at his goal. It's not necessarily your fault here. But the Palm one, my initial thought, that's an amazing strike, and then watching it back from the reverse angle, it's going kind of straight at you there as well.
Yeah, so he could have done better with that, but he was maybe just shell shocked because he was getting the shots just flying in at him constantly. I think that must have been the most saves anyone's made in a game for ages. I think because it was about, I think, did he not make like 13 odd saves, something like that, which is a lot. So fair play to him, but yeah, I thought he could have done slightly better. But it was just constructive criticism. But it was a shame. Obviously, it was the right decision, but it completely ruined the game as a contest having that red card so early, and it was just attack against defence, for 90 minutes almost.
Yeah, I see Malky Mackay's war on Kyle Turner actually playing games of football continues there as well. A slightly different look Celtic side as well, as they sort of rotated a little bit. Callum McGregor inevitably still played because of course he did. Yep. Why would he not? David Turnbull probably star man on the day as well for them as well, which these are the kinds of games, if he's going to get runs out in games, broadly O'Reilly and Hatate are better footballers than David Turnbull, but if he's going to secure a place higher up the pecking order at Celtic or somewhere else, it's these games that he's really got to start in, and he did. He was very good throughout the game, I thought, as well.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of noise developing around Turnbull in a negative sense from Celtic fans.
Yeah, I'm offering out basically any of them that want to, if they would like to. If anyone would like to discuss this further, they're welcome to meet me at Rule Street. I will be there, and you can bring your maw.
Yeah.
I'm single-handedly holding back the Barbarians at the gate
here. Yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's going to work out. I mean, you can say how is it going to work out for Turnbull? He's already won quite a lot of the stuff at Celtic, but I don't think it's. I don't think he'll ever end up being a Celtic regular first pick. I think that ship's sailed for him now, and you'll leave Celtic probably. I think relatively soon. I'm not sure when his contract's up, but I don't think he'll sign another one. So I think he'll probably, because he needs to be. I think he would rightly want to play more football than he will if he stays at Celtic, even though he will play a decent amount, as he has done more or less throughout his Celtic career. He's always probably been the fourth man in the midfield almost. I mean, I think he played pretty much every game actually when Postecoglou first came in.
Yeah.
And then he got an injury, didn't he, up at Tannadice, if I remember correctly. And then then Hatate came in, O'Reilly came in, and he's never really, after that, properly kept his place in the team after that. So yeah, I mean, he definitely has his uses. He's shooting outside the box, probably the best in the league. And he is a good footballer. It's just he probably isn't ever going to really kick on at Celtic now, because he just won't play every week.
He just needs to be playing every week at this point in his career, and it's now at the point where it's potentially becoming detrimental for him. It was fine to be like, well, you're there, you're on the fringes, but the reality is that the quality there is of such a high level in terms of Scottish football terms, that it's unlikely that he's going to be going beyond that there as well. Yeah. And even a swan song from the human victory cigar, James Forrest as well. So fair.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
That takes us to Rugby Park. Wonderful. Motherwell's absolute catastrophe of the last 9 games odd continues onwards. I actually saw some people suggesting that had we just got leathered off Rangers and Celtic rather than playing them so close, that might actually have been quite advantageous for us. I'm not convinced that's the case, as my view is generally getting leathered in football games is probably a bad thing. So yeah, ultimately I don't think that's a positive. I wouldn't say I have pressed the panic button, but I know where the panic button is in my house. So that if I need it, I can go and get the panic button if I need it. And there's a decent chance I think we're going to need it relatively soon.
Yeah, it is a funny one, isn't it? Because when a bad run of results actually start with good performances, as certainly the performance at Ibrox was a good performance. The performance at Park Park against Celtic was a pretty good performance. I do. I mean, there could be something in we're doing everything right, and maybe the results don't come. So it's like, well, we just need to keep doing what we're doing, and then maybe problems have arisen and amongst all that. It's I mean, it's not like the game. Well, in midweek was probably more concerning. I imagine the Aberdeen game. This was just a game where there wasn't a great deal in it. But
in isolation, a whole number of teams will go to Rugby Park this season and lose 1-0.
Yeah.
Teams like Rangers and Celtic will go to Rugby Park.
Yes, we have indeed. Yep.
Teams better than us, teams worse than us. A lot of teams will go to Rugby Park this season and lose 1-0. Kilmarnock, for me, are a very, very good side. Like the back line that they have is very good. It's very well balanced. It's very, very well settled. Robbie Dees was smashing in this game as well. Was a little bit of everything, showing the real quality that he has. I thought it was kind of funny that I presume Stuart Finlay made his way back at North on the basis that he was looking at the Scotland squad, being like, "Well, I'm not going to make it in there by playing in English League 1, English League 2. Nobody cares. I'll come back to Kilmarnock. I'll play regularly and I'll edge my way back into the squad." I would suggest he's now, if I was going to pick one defender from Kilmarnock, I don't think it would be him. And that's coming from someone, I think Stuart Finley's a smashing player.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely to be Robbie Dees at this point. If there's a scrabbling around for a centre half, I think it's more likely to be him than it is.
It's interesting with
Finley.
Dees is that Dees seemed, because he did come out of the team in recently at Kilmarnock, but I would have said that what Dees' best games have been the best games of any. This is from my viewing of Kilmarnock's games. I feel that when he's been good, is like it's been like the best performance of any Kilmarnock defender this season. But then he's maybe not. He's had his floor is maybe a wee bit lower than Finlay, which you'd sort of expect with him, both Finlay and Mayo, and that they actually have more first experience, I think, in the top flight than Dees does. So it's not shocking that he might have the odd game where he's not quite got to grips with his opposite number or whatever. But when he has good games, as he did, obviously been in both Rangers and Celtic games early in the season, and again at the weekend when he was actually getting forward quite well, and his role was sort of, I think, slightly more advanced than it has been in other games. He looked superb. So yeah, it's I think maybe by the end of the season, he might come out a wee bit because obviously they get right as well. So they've actually got 4 centre halves, which I always think it can be a problem for Scottish teams that like to play with the back three when they quite often seemingly only have like 3 centre halves that can actually do it. And then as soon as one of them goes missing, it's like, well, do we need to change the whole formation, or what are we doing? I think Kilmarnock have got 4 centre halves that can do it and can play it, and a couple of them in Mayo and these can probably play in other positions as well. Yeah. So you could potentially get all 4 of them on the park at different times if you want to do that. He's just a really good player. Decent, I think. In 18 months' time, I wouldn't be that shocked if he is. Depends, where Scotland's centre half options are at that point. But I wouldn't be that shocked if he's sort of taking a step up, or he's in and about the Scotland squad, because while he might have the odd inconsistent moment this season, I think you'll continue to improve.
Yeah, obviously losing Kyle Vassell, a blow for Killie in this game. I did a bit of digging earlier, and it seemed to just be like a dead leg rather than anything sort of more serious and longer term for him. But let's saw Ennis Cameron enter the fold, which gives me a little bit of fear, because I believe all of his goals have come against teams that ended up being relegated, which is a little bit of a concern, because streaks obviously have to be broken at some point. I just desperately hope it's us, because that's quite concerning.
Yes, yeah, he took his goal well. I think most of the plaudits for the goal should go to another sort of star of Kilmarnock season, David Watson. He's a good player. I think he could really go far. He just looks intensely annoying to play against, because he's just so much energy about him. Really gets about the park well, and has a decent amount of quality as well. Just it's I'm always impressed when young players play as intelligently as Watson did for that goal, and reminded me a wee bit of like a younger Lewis Ferguson. He was like always played as if he was like 35, even though when he was like 18 and started to play Aberdeen. So yeah, Watson has a bit of that about him, whereas he does have the youthful exuberance, but he's pretty switched on and clever. I think so. Yeah,
that's the sort of thing you want to see from players like that as well, because obviously he came into the Kelly team last season as well and was a huge catalyst for them kind of securing their safety simply just by being there and just being relentless and all. Just a good player. Yeah. But like, he's just starting to add just a little bit more and more to his game, and a few more strings to his bow ultimately as well.
Because like last season, it felt like he was he was like the poster boy to the sort of fans that always say, "Oh, just get one of the youth in." They'll try, and they have to be better than what we're getting served up here. And then he just sort of was caught because of his energy. So actually, that's worked. Like they did just need someone to run about daft in the midfield. But there's more to his game than that, and yeah, I think he's already becoming like not that Kilmarnock fans don't necessarily want to think about him leaving already, but I think he's already becoming quite a big asset for Kilmarnock, and they also don't need to work out what they want to do with him. But I think he's a cracking player.
He's a very desirable type player. Someone that you get a lot of various people who get on board with. Enough beating in the bush. Liam Kelly and his assist. While it was very kind of you to suggest that David Watson produced a significant role within Ennis Cameron's goal, Liam Kelly, I would suggest, really gets the assist for this, for tumbling a relatively tame shot out of his grasp into the 6-yard box. I always feel that when Kelly comes back from international camps, he's a worse player for a couple of weeks. And he international duty seems to, I don't know whether it gets in his head or just the moving away from the weekly football. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but I always feel that he's poorer when he comes back from international breaks. And I'd always wondered, if he actually gets a cap, how poor is he going to be when he returns to Motherwell? And now I have the answer to that. Following the Aberdeen game and this game, he is not having a nice time at this moment in time. He had a nice save in the first half from Brad Lyons. Good save, very Liam Kelly type save.
That was very good save.
Very good save. Just quite concerned because he's just making the stupid mistakes, which is alarming. And throughout this season, it's from Motherwell's perspective, it's kind of felt like a bit of like, if we can just about hold station until we get Beereth back and Wilkinson fit again and Butcher back and everybody's fit and everyone's ready. The problem is that they're now all back and we are becoming a worse football team for it. Brodie Spencer, for example, seems to be getting worse with every week he plays. Like last year with James Furlong, who it felt like every single game he played, he became a better wing back. Spencer is a Spencer is a right-sided wing back who is continually putting in the left because he's fast enough to get away with it just about. Doesn't particularly have a left foot, so can't bomb down and whip it in. Has to continually cut back, which teams have figured out. When Motherwell's best chance in the game was Paul McGinn going on a mazy run to try and finish with his left foot. I have concerns here. And there's no real depth within the Motherwell squad either to then move away from the system that we have. Kettlewell has recruited for the system that we are playing with a couple of little tweaks here and there. So whether it's 3 strikers, but they're tucked in behind, or playing with like a sort of 4-man midfield, like all of that's tinkering around the edges around not having any width in the team that's not a wing back. And now I'm increasingly concerned that we can't turn this around because we don't have the players to change anything. And if, as with all systems within the Scottish top flight generally, sort of Steve Robinson on multiple occasions, that eventually teams manage to figure it out. Yeah. And there are ways in which you can stop those systems, and I don't know where we go from here because
teams play against each other too often in Scotland. If you are a bit of one note as a team, you can, unless you're extremely good, you can struggle. And I do wonder if the Kettlewell sort of system at Motherwell, and he was picking up before. I was listening to the radio before the 3:00 games on Saturday, and he was, or the 1 3:00 game. This was the only one, but it was Kettlewell talking about like going through with the players, like the game model, and I think he called it some of the pitch. It wasn't pitch geography. That was a Mark Warburtonism. I can't remember. It was something like that. He said though, and it was about like, and it sounded like good and detailed, and like, we're just reinforcing exactly what it is that we want them to do. But obviously, the longer you go on a run where you're not winning any games, the more you think, well, you might want to change that model a bit. I know it got Motherwell out of a particularly sticky situation they were in last season, and maybe that clarity was just what was required then. But that you might have been rumbled, Stuart, and you might need to tweak things. But then, as you've said, how far can you if you don't really have the players to do that?
We've tried to play Blair Spittle like out wide as part of a like front 3. We've done that before. That was Graeme Alexander's grand idea. It did not work. Like, Blair Spittle's a fine footballer. He is not a man blessed with pace. And that's kind of throughout the squad as well. There's not a huge amount of pace that isn't coming from deep, which makes us somewhat one-dimensional and easy to play against. In addition as well, I know players do not like playing at Kilmarnock in terms of the surface. They don't agree with it, whatever else, right? Motherwell consistently seem to get it in their heads that you cannot play at Kilmarnock, which is not true. Teams do. Teams have. Kilmarnock knock the ball around at times from time to time as well, relatively well. But it's so ingrained within the Motherwell team that you can't play on it. Just the relentless, just get it, empty it, get it forward fast, and do that. It drives me nuts. Drives me bananas. We do the same at Livingston as well when it's just not. There are occasions when that is required. It's not always required,
especially when the ball doesn't bounce normally. So if you are lumping it forward, it's probably going to be even less effective than you just did that on a grass park because it can bounce away from you quite easily. So not great for Motherwell.
Not great. Nonetheless, that takes us to the final game of the weekend as we head to the something foam stadium, Scott Foam Stadium at Dens Park.
Mr. Scott Foam.
Yep. Mr. Scott Foam, where Dundee defeated Livingston 1-0 as Livingston's struggles, I would say, continue, and Dundee's relatively sensible, decent season continues.
Yeah. I mean, I thought in midweek Dundee were absolutely rotten against Rangers.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that was one of the worst opposition performances Rangers have come up against in recent years. I thought it was that bad. It was just very... I mean, they were just sort of sitting ducks, ready to get shot. But apart from that, Dundee have been really quite impressive this season.
I think today is a much better reflection of where Dundee are than the midweek game against Rangers. Like ultimately, Dundee will be a relatively stodgy team who are quite difficult to beat. Again, as soon as Rangers take the lead in that game after 6 minutes, 8 minutes.
That was it.
It's fucked because Dundee aren't going to then go toe-to-toe with Rangers. If they could go toe-to-toe with Rangers, then they do it from the first minute in any case. They cannot. There's a reality attached to that as well. And even with that today as well, as I've said this before as well, and I do find it kind of odd discussing Tony Docherty as like a rookie manager because he's been running Scottish football for a jubillion years, but similarly as well, you can see him still learning in terms of what he is doing as Dundee manager, and whether it's just the players or whether it's just him taking responsibility as the gaffer rather than as an assistant and somebody else, the buck stopping with them. But like today, like the Dundee improved enormously once Boateng came into the game as well. Like he was asking Silla and Cameron to kind of do the job that Boateng does without actually having him just play Boateng. Like, just think it's fine. Just skip to the end. We'll play Malachy Boateng, and that'll improve it enormously as well. And you could everything kind of within that Dundee side kind of ticks through him in the middle, whether it's defensively or whether it's offensively. He's a smashing player, and you get just a little bit of everything out of him. Yeah. They still look light up top to me. And it's Dundee, like I said earlier on, like you said, Miovski's the only. Miovski's a consistent goal scorer for Aberdeen. He's basically about the only consistent goal scorer in the entirety of the league at this moment in time. Like, there's a real struggle for the majority of sides, and we saw that in basically all of the league games this weekend in Ross County or Livingston or Kilmarnock or Motherwell or Dundee. Rudden gives you effort. Bakayoko gives you effort. Neither of them will look like they're going to potentially, if they hit double figures, then I'd say that's been a very good season for them.
Oh yeah, extremely.
Luke McCowan, on the other hand,
yes, he is getting a lot of plaudits.
Yes, was his free kicks. It's worth tuning into the sports scene to see simply that. Much as anything else, it's an absolutely smashing free kick. The only other thing I really have to add to this game as well is the potential red card in the game as well. It's a funny one. Kelly kind of lunges at it. I know you don't necessarily take into account the pace of the people around you. I kind of feel like if anyone steps away from Mikey Devlin, he will not catch them.
Yeah. It's a fact. Yeah, his legs don't work.
His legs don't work. Like, he's a fine footballer for what he is, but again, I'm not. I was surprised to see. I was a little bit surprised to see it overturned. I thought it could have ended up a red quite comfortably, but nonetheless.
Yes. Yes, but yeah, just on Livingston, that sort of. I mean, do you fear for Livingston?
I've been
Because
fairly consistent on my position of Livingston. I think they're a poor team.
yeah, because I had sort of thought, to be honest, obviously there was a lot of chat in the summer around them not having any money.
Yep.
Which not for the first time at Livingston, and obviously, and that can go a variety of different ways, and obviously hamstrung the recruitment a wee bit. But I think I said this earlier in the week to somebody I was speaking to about this, and I was like, well, I can't, I struggle to see them going down Will Martindale as a manager, because I just think he's got enough about him that's they will just Livingston their way out of it. I'm beginning to wonder about that. I think they might be in bother because it really depends. I think their season will largely depend on do St Johnstone continue to be as bad as they've been up until this point. If St Johnstone, improve slightly, then I think Motherwell might be as well, right enough. But I think Livingston might be in bother, in serious bother, because they're not as good as Dundee, which is worrying. Because Dundee are probably going to finish 10th or 9th, maybe. But they'll end up about there. If you're worse than Dundee, I think you're in relegation trouble. And I think Livingston are.
They just keep missing good chances. Like Newbley missed a good chance in the first half. And it was like a 10-15 minute period where it was all Livy in this game, and I kind of feel that happens in just every game for Livingston as well. Like they have this wee 10-minute period where they look really good but they don't get a goal, and then if they don't get the goal in that point, they're just not in the game. And I feel like they miss a lot of good chances, and they need to, again, if you're creating good chances but you're not quite finishing them, is that like, okay, you're in the game at the very least. But they have to be more clinical in the chances that they have, because I feel like just about every game that I see with Livingston, there's a chance at a key point which they're just not taking as well.
Yeah, and it was one of the issues I suppose I have when you're sort of attacking talisman is Joel Newbley, who isn't very good at taking chances. That's his big. Would you rather have a guy like Joel Newbley who's much worse, but if he was amazing at finishing, probably. Like, if you could lose all his twinkle toes and everything that makes him the sort of fun player that he is to watch, and just get a reliable goal scorer instead, you might be better off. Possibly.
Bruce Anderson, who sits on the bench for the majority of weeks.
Well, indeed, exactly. It's an issue.
Nonetheless, that rounds us off for this weekend's action. With I assume we'll have around 12,000 different patrons coming out over the course of the week.
I think so.
As well as the general Lower League Sunday or the Lower League podcast on Thursday as well. But thanks very much for your time this evening, Ian.
Ian, who's Ian?
Thanks very much for your time this. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Euan.
Thank you, Graeme.
You're very welcome, Ian. And thank you very much, dear listener, for tuning in to listen. We will be back at various points over the week. Enjoy the rest of your working week. Sorry about that. Bye-bye.